It is time now here on 4AK to get our local fix of history. And, of course, we do that with History Out There. And Harold Peacock, good morning, mate.
Yes, good morning, Damo. It's a chilly morning, but I've got some hot history to tell you about today. They all got fired up.
That's exactly right. Now, I remember you telling us about this story back in 1871, the Queensland election riot in Warwick, but there's a little bit more to it.
Yeah, that's right. I looked at the police involved, and there's a bit of a story behind there. I'll tell you about that now, if you like.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, look, you might remember, like you said, I told you that in 1871, about 2,000 people gathered outside the Warwick courthouse waiting to hear the result of the election. Now, when the winner was announced, supporters of the loser, the newspaper publisher James Morgan, turned into an angry mob, and things got nasty. Like a melee broke out that lasted into the night, with rocks thrown and people knocked to the ground, kicked and punched, almost to the point of death. The fighting didn't stop until shots were fired at the old Criterion Hotel. Now, the newspapers at the time lamented that the police could do nothing with only 4 constables against that whole riotous mob.
Right.
And I've looked at those constables, and it could be said that policing in Warwick at the time was perhaps less than successful anyway. Now, in charge of the Warwick police the day of that election riot was Sergeant Robert Grayson. Now, although he was lauded in some respects, he holds the record as the least successful constable in searches in Darling Downs history. You see, Sergeant Grayson was one of the unsuccessful searchers for the lost girl of Callandoon. Now, that's when the 3.5-year-old girl Bessie Downing went missing from Callandoon Station near Gundawindi. Sergeant Grayson failed to find her, and the disappearance became Australia-wide news. Now, Sergeant Grayson was then unsuccessful in searching for Mrs. Elizabeth Mandel, who disappeared from Emu Creek after she boarded the coach from Warwick to Toowoomba. Now, Sergeant Grayson failed to find her too, and another disappearance made headlines around Australia. Now, Sergeant Grayson himself later disappeared after he couldn't find his way home. It was weeks until his body was found in the Condamine River at Warwick. So, looking at the other policemen that reported to him, and one of the policemen who reported to Sergeant Grayson at the election riot was Constable Matthew Fitzgerald.
Right.
He was a mounted constable of, how should I say it, very diminutive stature, who everyone called Little Fitz.
Oh, he was a bit short.
Yeah, look, Little Fitz had limited success in his chosen career. One of his big cases was charging a Chinaman called Fat on suspicion of being a lunatic. Now, another was when he chased the boys who had tied tin kettles to the wedding cart of Sergeant Grayson's daughter. But the boys got away because Fitzgerald was too short to catch them.
Right.
Now, Constable Fitzgerald later became an unsolved crime scene himself. That's because he suddenly dropped dead after eating his wife's jam tart. Now, the tart was laced with arsenic, and his wife never got charged.
Wow.
Now, during the election riot, Sergeant Grayson and his constables did succeed in rescuing 2 men from the mob, and a number of the policemen received some pretty severe blows while doing it. Now, one of those was probably Constable Richard Murphy, who later on, out near Stanthorpe, was beaten within an inch of his life with a stirrup iron.
Wow.
So, Damo, policing back then was pretty rough work.
Yes.
Now, following the riot, there was some, I think, unfair criticism that they should have sworn in, say, 150 special constables as soon as they saw trouble brewing, and that the whole thing would probably have been stopped within 5 minutes or not happen at all. But seriously, how do you swear in 150 people on the spot as a riot's brewing in front of you?
That's right.
Look, suffice to say, that day in 1871 was a blight on Warwick's law and order, and a bad day in the lives of Sergeant Grayson, Constables Warwick, Constables Fitzgerald and Murphy, and the others. But, Damo, there's some fascinating stories to come too, because in the coming weeks, I'm looking at some of the other people who were there at the riot. And it's very interesting what happened to some of them as well. But actually, next week, Damo, I'm actually coming to you live from Kalgoorlie in Western Australia, because I've been following some research on Darling Downs. It's taken me all the way over there, so just wait till next week.
Wow, you do get about, don't you, H?
Oh, look, you send me on assignment. You've got a huge budget, so I just take advantage of it.
Haven't told the boss about it yet, but anyway. Mate, you'll be posting this story up a bit later this week?
Absolutely. On Friday morning, I'll post a story on my website. That's historyouthere.com. And more about that 1871 Warwick election riot.
Fantastic. Historyouthere.com, mate. We'll look forward to catching up with you in Kalgoorlie next week.
Yeah, talk then.